The story about to see is about a very serious incident involving Tim Leach, a tree climber. Bit of a warning, the vision is quite graphic. We make no apologies for that. We believe it's a very important message that needs to be said. The message here is the paramount importance of safety to all of us. Now let's watch Tim's story.
I got a zap of 22,000 volts through my right hand, travelled down my arm and then out through my right leg.
I personally don't know how he survived it. I can't explain that.
I think it's completely miraculous, and I describe it to people as a miracle because to me that's what it is. Down to the last branch on one side of the wires that we had to cut. As that branch was coming down, I was pushing it with my right hand to get it to go where I wanted. Unfortunately, it went in a slightly different direction. So the electricity's travelled down the branch, which electricity will travel through green timber nearly as well as what it'll travel through any conductor, just because it's got so much moisture in it. So it's come down the branch and it's contacted my hand because my hand was touching the branch still, and it's meant that it's burnt off most of my index finger and took off most of my outside skin of my right leg and tissue. And created quite a bit of damage there. It just destroyed all my clothes and melted part of my harness and one of my flip lines. If you can imagine every muscle in your body trying to destroy itself, that's what it feels like. And you can't yell, you can't move, you can still see, but you can't do anything about anything. So for me at the time, I could see what was going on, but I just couldn't move any muscle in my body because everything is contracting at such a rate that every muscle just feels like it's trying to tear itself apart, and just immense pain beyond anything I could ever really describe. But it is just so intense, and it really doesn't back off. There's no letting down in it all. And I mean, I really thank God that I did go unconscious because I couldn't put up with it any longer.
I was off site. I took a phone call from Mark James, who manages our control room, and Mark informed me that we'd had a fatality, that one of our tree clearers had been killed.
My heart sank and I was absolutely devastated that one of my friends and employees had been killed, and I was in shock, absolute shock.
And just a feeling of despair and that someone had been killed that I was responsible and accountable for was one of the most sickening feelings I've ever had.
The young guy I was working with thought I died at that stage. He was ringing up people, telling them that I was gone, that I was dead. I was lifeless up the tree and just had smoke pouring off me. My clothes were on fire at the time.
The call to say Tim was all right was the greatest relief I think I've had in my working career.
We were extremely relieved Tim was alive, but still apprehensive as to how his condition might pan out over the coming hours and days even. So
I'd had the phone call on the way down that Tim was alive, he was talking, and that was like just a huge relief, absolute huge relief.
So I headed over to Turadin, and I remember driving in the driveway and thinking, wow, I've never seen so many police, ambulance, fire brigade, all on site at one time. And sort of, just the shock hit and wasn't very pleasant.
I received a phone call, I was at home at the time, from the paramedic, and she informed me that Tim had been in an accident. Finally went into the hospital where he was at, and just seeing him was a real hard thing to cope with. Just hearing what the doctors were saying and everything like that was really hard. I remember coming out of ICU that night after the first day and into a room full of friends and family that were there waiting for us, and just collapsing on the floor and just utter despair, just crying, and just, it was just really hard to deal with.
So many people have told me I should be dead, and I believe that, knowing what electricity can do.
they thought he might require some blood transfusions and things like that. So it did feel like that first operation was a bit touch and go whether he would actually make it through that one.
After I had that phone call, I was in shock because it was my friend that I'd just been told was dead. But one of the first thoughts was my mind is, how am I going to tell Stacey that Tim's dead? You know, I was absolutely shattered. Absolutely shattered. I just, you know, it upsets me now. It really does.
Often think about whether he wouldn't have made it, like what life would have been like, and I guess I had a taste of that anyway while he was in hospital for such a long time. It just became more real that yes, you can lose your partner and your loved ones in a work accident, and you think it'll never happen to you, but it can, and it's very scary.
I had around 8 operations. I don't remember a lot of them, which is probably a good thing, but I had extensive skin grafting, especially to my right leg, where probably from mid-thigh to upper calf, nearly all the skin and tissue down to the muscle was just blown completely off.
The impact of this won't go away, and it's far and wide. You know, from Stacey and Tim, their workmates, their family, from Russell, their supervisor, who was on site fairly early after the incident.
Every day I think of that phone call and just think, I wish it never ever happened. Just the shock still, and if I relive it now, it's just absolute devastation.
If you see something wrong, don't go back and say, oh no, he'll be right. You need to at least stop, talk to him about it, and say, you sure you're right? Do you know what you're doing? That doesn't look right to me. And that 2 minutes of think time could save someone's life.
If they are unsure, don't do it. If they see something unsafe, speak up. And if that happens, we'll never have to go through this situation again.
It's a fine line between having a go and taking an unnecessary risk.
Risks just aren't worth taking. You're going to work and you're getting paid money, and money can't buy back the finger that I've lost, or the half the leg that's sort of not there anymore. You just can't buy that back with money.
Keep an eye out for your mates. If you see someone going about something that you think is unsafe, then have your say, speak up.
The most important thing every day is to go home to their families. That is the number one priority.
One of the problems with electricity is you can't see it. You see a power line up in the air and it looks harmless. Trying to get that through to the guys that are climbing trees, this stuff kills you.
You know, you think about it, if you were working next to a bomb that was ready to go off if it got touched, you'd probably be very careful about the way you worked around that. Electricity is equally as destructive as any bomb. You know, I feel just so amazingly blessed to be alive, and just to be able to talk to people, and you realise just how good it is to be able to breathe and move and, you know, see the sky and all those things that we take for granted after you've been through an experience like that.
I don't know about you, but it's a very powerful story. It impacted me on the day I was involved, and I was impacted then, and that brought back the memories. It takes a lot of courage to share a story like that, and I'd really like to thank Tim and Stacey. This story emphasises the importance of Mission Zero. Mission Zero to me is about stamping out incidents like this. It's about doing fair dinkum risk assessments where we look at the risks and work together. It's about looking after your workmates. It's about working safe at home as well as you do at work. We all know we work in challenging environments. Every job is different. Safety must be a priority. Tim is lucky to be alive. I personally never want to be involved in anything like this again. We all need to take responsibility for safety. You owe it to your workmates, you owe it to your family, and most of all, you owe it to yourself.